Thank you, Zach, for your request for a swing analysis. You say that you're chunking, and that is a synonym for hitting fat or laying the turf over the ball. And that comes from catching the ball with an iron, particularly where the edge of the club gets into the turf before it gets to the ball. And the ball just doesn't get well compressed and fly well. Now, interestingly, golf errors often come with their own list of fixes. And anybody who's obviously as devoted to the game as you is going to evolve a list of fixes for the problems. Now, interestingly, in my line of work, when I've never met somebody before, I can see these things. And part of the job is to link up what I think is the fault and what are the consequential fixes or consequent fixes. Now, in your case, here's what I see. You start standing well. You do indeed stand and grip well. Your instincts for the game are good, and you do many things with correct form. But as you start the backswing, you do it very quickly by hinging your wrists. And then your tailbone, which is stuck out behind you, subtly shifts toward your right heel and your head toward your left toe as you do the second half of the backswing with what one could describe as a rather steep swing. The arms are, the left arm particularly, is stuck very high up here. An upright swing, as it's called, is more like a Ferris wheel and less like a carousel. And you have one additional feature, which is that the left hand has the knuckles subtly angled back toward where the wristwatch would be. That's called an open club face, and cuppy, as they call it. And it's got extra loft. Now, I think it's one of those things that you've built in or found somewhat beneficial, because the way that you move, lifting your arms up and subtly moving your head over your left toe, means that if you do nothing else, the ball's going to go very deep divot, hard left. Now, the deep divot, the fat shot, if it happens before the ball hits fat, chunky as you called it. So I think that that teaches you to move your head over your left foot. You're trying to actually move the base of the swing ahead of the ball. So you can see how these things sort of evolve. Now, the problem with that is that you've got this very steep hit that wants to go left. And so you have to work very hard to try to square up the club and add loft. So you hit what they call early, where you uncock your wrist very early to get some lift and to help guide the club, the ball toward the target. And that's where the risk of shanking comes from. Well, shanking is so awful that means that you have to do these things just to pull back. And the better choice is to hit fat. Not a great choice, but the better one than shanking. So here's what to do about it. Stand the way you do, grip the way you do. It's quite nice. And do it, though, with your left shoulder a little nearer to the ball. And your head, of course, as a consequence, is slightly to the right. And your tailbone, which is stuck out behind you, is subtly feeling like it's more toward your left heel. And it's your legs that made that adjustment. Then do a waggle, because the spacing might need a little bit of fine-tuning. And start the swing with a replica of that waggle. Now, what I want you to do is imagine that you're going to do the entirety of the turn, which is like a lid on a cylinder, your shoulders, in the first half of your backswing, so 90 degrees. Now, it's a bit fictional, but that's how it should feel. And how you continue then is to hinge your wrists and with relatively little enthusiasm lift your arms. In fact, you won't find that you can go back quite as far if you keep your tailbone and head in these shapes. I think that's beneficial. And don't worry about the wrist action for a moment, because might be a topic for another conversation. But at least now you're in a position where you not only can but have to keep your wrists hinged and release like a door turning as you go through the ball. In other words, allowing it to go to the left, but because of these new body angles, it won't be also risking very fat or shanking. I would speed the training slightly by, with a short iron, teeing the ball up, swinging at half speed and picking the ball clean off the tee with the front 2/3 of the club for a few shots, just so that you can get used to releasing the club and hitting a ball high left under those conditions. I think it will give you some confidence. So let me know how that helps.